I'm done. I am done apologizing. I am done being persecuted for my strength.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
You people should be thanking Christ that I am who and what I am because you need me. You need me to save you. I am the only one who possibly can. You're not the real heroes. I'm the real hero.
So I did have this video appear in my inbox on YouTube recently, rating gacha games free-to-play friendliness from worst to best. And this got some traction. It got a lot of traction, and traction from, you know, if you ever say ZZZ's better than WUA in this category, then there are going to be words from a certain creator. So there's I follow a video regarding the misinformation in ZZZ's power creep responding to Saintontas. Now, personally, I personally don't believe if you're responding to someone defending yourself that is drama. I can see how you believe that's drama, but if you continue, then like sure, it can be categorized as drama, that's fine. But I don't believe defending yourself at least once is drama. So Moose, this isn't drama. But let's see what he has to say. A couple days ago, make sure audio's good. Let's get right into it. We're gonna speed this up just a little bit. All right, we're off to the races.
Most F2P friendly gacha games, where I rated the 9 gacha games on screen right now and ranked them from worst to best. While most rankings were pretty much—
Maybe I shouldn't have sped it up. Bro was actually on caffeine. I didn't realize how much caffeine, like, I thought it was just a name. I didn't realize he was actually like on caffeine. This might be harder to follow than like a Mr. Pokey video, but oh god, here we go.
Very well accepted by everyone. There were 2 rankings, Wuthering Waves and Zenless Zone 0, that caught the attention of a certain Wuthering Waves community on YouTube, with the CC leading that community, having a name that rhymes with Brain Fantas. Well, other than calling me the R word, which for some reason is getting more normalized on Twitch, and other than his community calling me a Hoyo shield, they did pretty well break down why my rating was a little off, and I do absolutely agree. I made some mistakes that I do.
So from what I understand, he gave the rating a, this is all I know about the situation. He gave ZZZ a 7.5, and in terms of friendliness, F2P, and WUA a 7, right? Now, I have this talk with people in my Discord all the time. you also saw this with Frolova, how her weapon, like obviously you can get like guaranteed standard banner weapon is it's fine, sure. It's still 43% worse than her SIG, which is insane. ZZZ, if we're talking about like weapons and variety, there are exceptional 4-star options that are not 43% worse than the 5-star option. So that is one way, that is one route I can see. Whenever videos like this are made, you will always hear the, but you can clear everything with solo dungeon. People love giving the exception, not the rule arguments. But you can clear everything with solo dungeon, but solo dungeon. It gets so annoying, bro.
I do find regrettable. However, even though I am making a response video, this is like the least serious thing ever. But the reaction of Saintontas community is very over the top. Again, calling me the R word and saying that I'm spreading misinformation. This will be a short, not very edited video. So other than telling you to quickly like and subscribe and join the Discord for a lovely community and cute.
That is the thing about certain communities. Instead of them telling you how you were wrong, they will just name call, or they'll just say you're spreading misinformation without like any context whatsoever. It's so like, I really think a lot of these communities are just like children. Like it's absolutely absurd to me.
Capics, let's get into it. Oh, and just shout out to Rose from the Express Train Discord server for helping me out with fact-checking a lot of information about Zenless Zone 0.
Okay.
So I gave Wuthering Waves a 7 out of 10 and Zenless Zone 0 a 7.5 out of 10, which, like I said, rubbed some people the wrong way. And totally understandably so, because I made some mistakes when it comes to Wuthering Waves. I also made some mistakes when it comes to PGR, but those are less important, so we'll talk about them in the end. The first biggest mistake I made was saying that Wuthering Waves does not have a soft pity system, and that's just completely my fault and on me for not researching properly. I'm not here to make excuses, but the reason I made this mistake was because a while ago, when making my short series of rating gacha rates, I never saw it mentioned that Wuthering Waves has a soft pity system when researching the game, and I didn't directly search for that online. When I mentioned it in
Wait, he said I didn't have a soft pity system? Okay, you were definitely wrong there. You were definitely wrong there.
the short series, I haven't seen any comment correcting me on that. Again, completely my fault and I'm not making excuses, but that's just the reason why I made that mistake. Wuthering Waves does have a soft pity system that starts off from 65 pulls out of 80. The next point that Saint argued, and while it's not a mistake on my part, just a discussion point, is that you have to view Furlova's weapon buff, as well as some 5-star characters benefiting heavily from other 5-star characters, from the POV of if you can clear the endgame content with or without it. Well, here's the thing. First off, I do believe that even if you can beat the endgame content without Furlova's weapon, or Phoebe for Zanny, or Rocha and Cantarella for Furlova as well, which are the examples I provided in the video, I do still believe that it's quite a strong FTP player trap that a lot of people will fall into. Seeing the insane buff your new character gets from a limited 5-star weapon or character is definitely a way to get people pulling, so it is predatory. Even though you can still clear with it, an insane number of people will be tempted to pull, and for FTP players it's not always the wisest thing to do. Again, you can clear with skill, patience, and non-limited units, but a lot of FTP players—
But you can clear everything with solo dungeon! Like, if we're gonna go with that argument, then the one guy on the planet that cleared the last MOC in HSR with what is an HSR E0R1 Zila, like he's zero cycled. I mean, hey, you can— power creep doesn't exist in HSR if you can clear with Zila, right? Like, it's such a stupid argument.
will instead take the route of min-maxing their teams. When you look at Pridwin, for example, they have Furlova at T0.5 for Whimpering Wastes and T1 for Tower of Adversity because Pridwin ranks characters at an S0 or 0 basis. Meanwhile, she's most certainly T0 for both when you do have her weapon.
I've always argued that, like, they should have a separate section that includes the weapon, just so you know, for those people that are willing to use their resources to pull the weapon, or if you're like a low spender or a whale.
Just as an example that's even worse, Honkai Star Rail. And just FYI, you'll know I'm HSR's biggest hater if you look at my channel for 2 seconds, so don't go telling me I'm a Hoyo shill. In Honkai Star Rail, characters like Aglaya and My Day—
But that's the argument that the Kurobots make. They see one video on your channel about like HSR or ZZZ or any other game that's not Wuthering Waves, and you're instantly deemed a Hoyo shill. That's the argument these people make. That's how you know they're brain dead.
benefit an insane amount from their light cones, and their Eidolons as well for sure, which doesn't
Again, not anyone that plays Wuthering Waves, just the Kurobots.
happen in Wuthering Waves, but I did say it's a worse example of this. Anyway, My Day and Aglaya benefit a ton from their weapons, as well as their limited 5-star teammates, as well as someone like Asteris and many times Herda, who is definitely way more FTP friendly to play, by the way. So these units can still clear a lot, if not all, of the endgame content, especially when they first came out, back when they were still T0 units, without their light cones, limited 5-star teammates, and Eidolons. Now, before anybody says anything, I'm not saying HSR is a good game for FTP players at all. Like I said, I'm its biggest hater, but I'm just speaking straight facts. When these characters came out, and probably even still right now, they could clear without their absolute best in slot teams, but they definitely benefited a whole lot from their paid stuff, to the point where they could zero cycle. I feel like it's definitely a huge double standard when it's fine for Wuthering Waves to give its new 5-star DPS units such insane upgrades from their limited weapons and supports, but it's bad when a HOYOVERSE game does it. Oh, and this does happen in Zenless Zone Zero.
I've mentioned this many times. It's an absurd double standard. It's an absurd double standard. It's like rules for thee and not for me. That is the certain people in that community just they are the advocators of rules for thee and not for me. It is insane.
As well, especially with characters like Evelyn and Astra who are like peanut butter and jelly. I did neglect to mention that in the section about DZZ in the previous video, and I was simply completely uninformed about that, and for that I do apologize. Also, to clarify one thing I said about Wuthering Waves, is that its relic situation is better than HSR Genshin, but not as good as the other games on the list. And Saint interpreted that as me meaning that it's not a good situation, which is just not what I meant. I mean, it's a really good situation, but there's even better. Another big mistake I made about Wuthering Waves was completely forgetting about the free Shangli Yao and the Coral Shop. And this time,
You know a good relic system? Girls Frontline 2. Girls Frontline 2. But it's not mainstream, so no one's ever gonna like mention it, right? It is what it is.
No reason for that. I just completely forgot about those. That's my bad. Mentioning ZZZ's free 5-star selector for its anniversary while not mentioning Shangli Yao is definitely a yikes from me, and not mentioning the Coral Shop, which is something huge that WuWa has definitely over ZZZ, is also a huge yikes. So let's move on to ZZZ, and I'm gonna start defending it here. One of Saint's big talking points is how apparently ZZZ has a lot of HP inflation and power creep. On paper, that seems to be very true, but you've got to look at the nuance. While it looks scary to look at a chart and see how, oh my god, there's 110% HP inflation, and while it's also scary to look at the difference between Miyabi and Ellen, or how older DPS units perform against Miasma after Yishuan drops, you have to look at the nuance. When the game first started out, the combat was incredibly simple and basically nobody enjoyed it. One of the biggest reasons players stopped playing the game when it launched, and in fact why I also quit the game after playing it for around 8 to 10.
Damn, he's gonna say the same thing that I've heard a million times. I'm gonna let him cook, but like We all know this. It just doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter how many times you say it. Certain people are not going to acknowledge that you said this. They're not going to acknowledge. Like, the way they would acknowledge it would be to, like, stop talking about it and give it time, right? Rather than every single Shiyu, every single update. HP inflation!
10 hours when it first launched was the incredibly boring combat. It was just spam left click with basically everyone until you win.
It
Well,
was.
HOYOVERSE already knew this, so to reduce fights being incredibly long and winding and boring,
It became a joke. TECTONE, I remember TECTONE and like Smack used to like talk about how easy the game was. Mr. Pokey did it blindfolded. He did the Shiyu blindfolded, and it became like the joke of the community because it was so easy.
HP wasn't that high. And before you say I'm sounding like a Hoyo shield, one, this is just true,
It's just
and
a
two, I
fact.
literally built the base of my channel upon criticizing Genshin and Honkai Star Rail. Be for real, I absolutely hate HOYOVERSE, but I also like giving credit where credit is due, so that they may one day make a game that has little to no issues with it and or continue developing ZZZ in the way they are right.
No, Moose. No. You're a Hoyo shill. You are a Hoyo shill. You talked bad about Wuwa? Send him to the gallows.
Now without any bumps in the road, because so far, it's their best product by a long shot. Anyway, combat back then was boring because it was just spam your left mouse button and dodge until you win. And the players certainly complain about that a lot.
Bro, I made a video saying the live stream was mid. It didn't hit as hard as the other live streams. People interpreted that as me saying the Frolova story was bad. I like, you cannot with these people. It is insane.
I mean, I'll be real, a lot of it is still like that right now, but it's definitely a lot better than before, with dodging, chaining characters, skills, and ultimates becoming a lot more important, especially with the new miasma mechanic, but we'll talk about that in just a bit. So, by contrast to how ZZZ was when it first came out, like I said, the combat became a lot more fun. Another thing that happened was characters like Astra Yao and very recently Yuzuha releasing that made a lot of characters very powerful. Astra Yao buffs virtually anyone, Yuzuha made a lot of units stronger, including Jane Doe, who could clear basically all the content even before Yuzuha's release, but is now simply a lot better. Oh, and by the way, Saint said that Yuzuha power creeps Piper. Yuzuha is a support, Piper is a DPS. I don't see how Yuzuha power creeps Piper. Maybe Saint mentioned power creeps Lucy, or how Yuzuha does replace Piper in a few teams, but even then, Piper's a 4-star, and so is Lucy. 5 stars ever. 4 stars is pretty damn normal, and I see no issue with it. And finally, even without Astra, Yao, and Yuzuha, you can still clear with so many characters because all support units still work great. Astra and Yuzuha just make things easier, so with all these strong support units that buff everybody up, it'd be weird to not see HP rising in the endgame content. The proof is in the clears. This amount of HP inflation is not only fine, but necessary for the health of the game, because otherwise people would be clearing with Ben bigger. Oh wait, they already are. Also, if you want to talk about Zenless Zone Zero's meta and how there's power creep, maybe play the game properly, because I'm pretty sure a nice DPS character would struggle against an ice-resistant enemy, and maybe pick the right Bangbu as well. Hey man, maybe you're the one that needs to keep up with ZZZ's meta. Even then, you still—
But she shreds ice resistance! But she shreds ice resistance!
Cleared. Now let's talk about miasma and how it's the most overblown gacha topic of the f***ing century. So Yixuan is basically just there to make things easier. Also, a cool thing with miasma is that, and to be fair, this isn't a discussion point, just something to point out, is that when you have a bad build, miasma actually slightly helps with that because it does 15% damage to the enemy that has a miasma shield when you break it, which you can do by all the special attacks, dodging and ulting. You also get half of your ult bars back when you break the miasma shield, and miasma is not a problem. It's very overblown. Okay, now we move on to PGR, which is another game I made a few regrettable mistakes with. Again, I won't make any excuses, I just didn't research diligently enough, and the cause of that was probably because I was getting sick and tired of writing 5,000 words for the script, and just wanted to get done with the video. I genuinely do apologize for that, by the way. However, even with the mistakes that I made, I don't think punishing Grey Raven's F2P friendliness status is affected at all. Maybe the biggest mistake was saying it has harder player maintenance than HSR and ZZZ, and of course that turned out to be completely false, as a comment that I'd previously pinned had said, where that same comment also corrected me on a bunch of other stuff, and like I said, it's still an 8.5 out of 10, just behind Dark Knights, which may be Mr. Saint. If you watched the full f***ing video, you would know why Arc Knights is higher than PGR, and why PGR is only an 8.5 out of 10. So in the end, I was considering giving Wuwa and ZZZ the same score of 7 out of 10, but I felt that that was very unfair for both games because Honkai Star Rail is a 6 out of 10, and they're definitely both better than just 1 point more. I'll give Zenless Zone Zero a 7.5 out of 10, and Wuthering Waves a 7.75 out of 10. I just don't see a reason for ZZZ to be lower than Wuthering Waves too much, and I don't see a reason for Wuthering Waves to be higher, especially because Battle Cats is an 8 out of 10, and Wuthering Waves is simply not as F2P friendly as Battle Cats. Both games have given out 2 free 5 stars, a standard selector and a guy, but to be completely fair, Zhengli Yao is a better character for the meta than ZZZ's Haramasa. Both games can be cleared with simple skill, which hopefully I have proved in this video, and both games have F2P traps when it comes to characters benefiting from limited units. I'd of course give the Coral Shop to Wuthering Waves, which is something that ZZZ does not have, and in the end I just want to say that this is just a dumb situation, not very serious, and I do apologize for making a few mistakes. However, being called the R-word by a guy with 77,000 subs isn't very cool, and his community's reaction was very overblown and rude. I understand Saint's perspective of being very wary of ZZZ as it's a Hoyo product, but as of now it has not given me a reason to doubt its success in the future, other than the failure of its predecessors. I think both games are great, both games are very F2P friendly as well. Maybe Saint has too much of a ZZZ hate boner. That's it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we saw it in the freaking Smack video, what he said when he was just 100% on point about like, hey, you talking about what? You talking about what? Like, bro will go to bat for Kuro Games. He is their #1 white knight. Is actually insane. But yeah, oh, great video from Moose. I see his videos all the time in my inbox. Probably gonna sub to him, honestly. He has really good videos. We'll do that. Look at this brigading. The brigading is crazy. He made up for his mistakes. This is 100% just brigading. It's whatever. It is what it is. The most toxic community on Twitch, honestly. Probably even more toxic. You know what? I'm not gonna say that. I'll see you guys later. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. Have a good rest of your day. Take care. Peace.